what can you say about the science? What is the most compelling bit of science that you could share with us here? If you were trying to say to somebody, look, this is dangerous, what would you explain to them?
I think what I would start with is I talk about children. Because everyone has a younger sibling or a child or a grandchild or a niece or a nephew. And we know back in even the 1980s, there was solid proof that children's skulls are thinner and they also have a higher water content. So the radiation not only penetrates the skull more, so we're seeing that in an average adult, a cell phone held against the head will penetrate about 10% of the brain on the skull. With children as old as 5 years old, never mind infants, it gets up to 70% of that radiation penetrates inside. So not only do you have significant more radiation going inside the head, but because of the higher water content, it actually stays there. And so there are now dozens and dozens of studies at the Environmental Health Trust. If you go to because I'm involved with the Environmental Health Trust as well, ehtrust.org. If you go to our website, we're actually showing a computer model it's actually a really tough image where you see a little girl holding the phone, and then we show the computer modeling of the penetration going through. And just about all of her head has gone to a different color. So in case of children, where we're putting Wi-Fi in school, so the kids are going to school and getting 6 to 8 hours, depending on how their day is, of unnecessarily wireless radiation. And they don't have a choice. They have to go to school, right, and they have to be there. So, there's, like France has really severely cut back on the Wi-Fi radiation in their school. In Belgium, it's illegal to market, some of these devices to kids under 7 years of age. So when I deal with school trustees and saying, first and foremost, my industry's done a very good job of confusing people by saying you have to have wireless connected to the internet. Well, you absolutely do not need to have wireless connected to the internet, right? And there are devices that are available, tablets that are available that schools can buy that do not need a wireless connection. So when you talk about solutions, one of the things I say to trustees, when you're building a new school, hardwire. That's the absolute cheapest time to put in a wired connection. Now, you don't have to necessarily connect all those wires. Leave them dark in the wall, but then you've got the ability that should you decide to put in a wired connection, or you can put them in wired, the cost is negligible. Second thing, if you do have a wireless environment in the school, download whatever program or teaching subject you need or the test that you need, have the kids take it, and then they can upload it. So, you can manage connection. So, minimize the connection time that these kids are having. And then having wireless where they're in the gym, how crazy is that? First of all, we're starting to see that there is an impact, and there's studies now that show increase in heart palpitations or heart rate because of wireless. So now you've got kids running around in gym, their heart rate's already elevated, and you can have a risk. So, there's unnecessary connections or unnecessarily radiation when people don't even need connection. So we put together a multi-point program for schools saying, look, let's be aware that, first of all, the further away the students are from the router, the better it is. Secondly, minimize the time that you are connected to the internet. And thirdly, be smart about what tools you're using and what devices you're buying. Don't buy devices that only can be wireless. Right? My company or Apple or anybody who's selling to schools, if a whole school board came out and said, we are only considering the tablet devices that have a hardwired connection, how long do you think they would wait before they brought out many varieties of them? Right? So school boards get to lead the way in this as well.
Yeah.
We dealt with a local school here. We went in and we had professionals come in and take measurements, and we would still providing complete coverage for the students in the classroom. We reduced the wireless radiation by 90%. And all they did was two major things. They redesigned where the routers were in the classroom, and they also turned the dial down on the amount of radiation coming from the routers. And so there's some very basic things you can do to really significantly reduce radiation in schools, and there's other examples.
Yes.